Hello, freedom fighters. It is 6:36 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, October 10th, 2024. As we have had one of the largest manipulations we have ever witnessed on TV, the man-made hurricane Helene and Milton, and we have another one coming, Hurricane Natalie, and I think's the name of it, which they already have planned. But I want to go back to one of the last public documentaries on weather experiments from the 1960s, over 50 years ago. It's incredible what they have lied to the public about. Once they killed Kennedy, they never needed to tell us anything else ever again. And this is one of the last documentaries that I think was brought to you by the British. Very important here, but I'm going to show you a short clip of the forest fires they create to cause fires that will show you why we have so many forest fires at the moment. They create these forest fires on purpose to manipulate the weather systems after they spray it with all these contaminants as well. They got it figured out 60, 70 years later. Trust me. Stand by. Okay, we're going to play the short clip about the scientists talking about who's going to regulate weather control and the forest fires that also creates weather. Then we're going to play the entire clip, 25 minutes long, if y'all would stay tuned. We're just trying to learn stuff here and put point A to point B. Commercial Fisherman standing by. Let me know who finishes it. Thank you very much to the Warriors.
And that will bring problems. Damages for many thousands of pounds have been claimed in America's West by farmers who say their share of rain was stolen and others who say they got more than they bargained for. Henry Lansford is another scientist at Boulder, Colorado. He sees more complications.
Once we achieve this weather control, who is going to be the man who decides what kind of weather it's going to be? Because one farmer may need sunshine for his hay, another fellow may need rain for his corn, the hotel keeper wants sunshine for his guests, fellows wants to go skiing, wants to have lots of snow, and so forth and so on. And these interests are often in conflict. So it will take a Supreme Court of some sort to make the judicial decisions as to who gets what and when.
Who gets what in France may be decided by this. Near Toulouse in the Pyrenees, it's the Cloudmaker, a 3,000 square yard roaster for the atmosphere. Developed by Professor Dessin, its 100 petrol burners make clouds and sometimes rain at the touch of a switch. The burner gets through a ton of fuel every minute. Any rain it makes is more costly than Chanel No. 5.
While France puts the clouds up, America knocks them down. This is the Cloudbuster Squadron of the American Air Force. For the last 3 years, using their giant C-130 plane, they've been punching holes in clouds.
133, you are cleared for takeoff.
Roger, 133, cleared for takeoff.
Sorry about that, Warriors. I wanted to stop at a hair sooner, but here's the whole entire 1960s documentary on weather control. It's almost 60 years ago, around 60 years ago, so enjoy. Thank you for watching. Very important information here that's very old, sad to say. They have lied to the public and kept everything a secret. Stand by. Please enjoy and tell me that you stayed.
1 month ago, the sun went out for Italy. Since then, it's cost her 112 lives and £600 million. Italian floods are only a fraction of the cost of the climate. Some scientists believe we can control the elements. Tonight, then, how far should we go with bending the weather?
A jet reconnaissance plane of the American Air Force taking part in this year's Project Storm Fury. Mission, to fly into the eye of a hurricane and its spawning grounds over the Atlantic. Object, to tame the fury of the storm equal to many H-bombs by seeding its center with chemicals. One attempt at weather control.
Another, this time in Russia. Over the mountains of Georgia and Siberia, rockets hurl tons of silver iodide into the hearts of clouds until the threat of a severe storm subsides. What might have been turmoil becomes a gentle rain.
These aren't the efforts of a 20th century King Canute. They reflect the feelings of scientists in many countries that tomorrow we make our own silver linings.
The great dam and reservoir conflux at Boulder in the state of Colorado, America. Here at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, Dr. Walter Orr Roberts leads investigations into weather control.
There's a new sense of possibility, a sense that perhaps we are approaching an era where weather modification will not just be an interesting laboratory experiment, but something that is of significance to everybody. We will learn to put the finger on the trigger that releases climatic change, that changes the patterns of storms. And this is one of the things that many, many groups here at our laboratory and elsewhere are interested to get to the bottom of. For example, it's fascinating to speculate that man might be able to steer a hurricane by perhaps cloud seeding in a particular location, or by changing the evaporation of water from the ocean. But it's also important to realize some of the consequences that steering hurricanes might have.
Some of the consequences of weather control are unpredictable. Dr. Bernard Mason is head of the British Met Office.
If you're going to control the climate, this means doing something on a global scale, on a really grand scale. The sort of suggestions that people have made is, you see, melting the polar ice cap or changing the circulation in the oceans. Well, if you did something big enough of that magnitude, you almost certainly would produce some change in the climate, which might be more or less permanent. The trouble is, we don't know at the moment how to actually calculate or predict, really, what the change would be.
Massive surgery on the world's atmosphere might have unforeseen results, but the race to control it is on. In May 1965, President Johnson complained of America's slow pace. Russia has increased her spending on research to £8 million.
The other possibility, I suppose, this is certainly mentioned from time to time, that both sides are a little worried that the other might possibly modify or control the weather first from the military point of view.
The H-bomb is claimed to be brighter than 1,000 suns, but it's a trifle compared to nature. The energy involved in weather is so enormous, it makes this seem like a toy.
Well, if you take a modest storm, like a thunderstorm, it'll be the total energy will be equivalent to about 10 atom bombs, the sort of things that were dropped on Hiroshima. If you take a hurricane, this would be equivalent to a few hydrogen bombs. But if you take the energy reaching the whole atmosphere, over the whole globe from the sun, that's where the energy ultimately comes from. This is equivalent to about 1 hydrogen bomb every second.
Military uses apart, weather has a power we in Britain only rarely encounter. We make no attempts to change our weather, but it's a climate 9/10 of the world would gladly settle for.
We refer with heavy irony to our national game as our rain-making ceremony.
We drive towards our 100-car pile-ups in fog which we don't try to clear.
And we complain bitterly, but wish you were here, of the treachery of our holiday weather. So we compromise, make it the British talking point, and try to see the funny side. So sometimes weather is a cruel joke.
And sometimes just cruel. These are the big twisters, the tornadoes of the American Midwest. Internal wind speed 500 miles an hour. Destruction in their path, total. Last year they killed 250 people, maimed 3,000, did £100 million worth of damage.
Lightning kills 5,000 people a year.
There are 45,000 major thunderstorms a year. At any given instant, over 2,000 are boiling into action around the world.
Tomorrow we won't be able to afford weather. The cost will be too high. It may be no better or no worse than it was 50 or 100 years ago, but we're increasingly vulnerable to its extremes. Population, industry and cities are so highly organized that what were once simply unusual conditions become disasters. Present forecasting is right 80% of the time. We can see only one day ahead.
For example, if we could forecast for a week ahead, this would have a tremendous economic value to agriculture, for example, transport, aviation, the power and gas industries, electricity, practically anything you can think of. And I would say the economic value of this would run into hundreds of millions of pounds a year.
I want to stop them a second. We're 50 years, 60 years later, and they can't get the 4-hour forecast right because of weather manipulation. I would rather go back to the one-day forecast that was right, that I remember as a kid. They can't get the 4-hour forecast right now. Continuing the video.
Tomorrow we might control the weather. Today we predict it. Increasingly, forecasting the weather lies with computers and a system of prediction called numerical forecasting. By this, 6 hours of weather data can be crammed into a quarter of an hour. The weather's becoming automated, up to a point. But men still collect the readings.
Farnborough, a Hastings of the Meteorological Research Flight on its daily routine, a search of clouds forming over the western areas of England.
Temperature plus 14.5, airspeed 164, height 5.05. Photograph now. Entry into cloud imminent. Flap plate cowl, URT cowl, refractometer cowl. Hygrometer flap closed, please. Entry now. Flap closed. Magnesium oxide slide impaction now. Operate. Roger. Quite bumpy here. Should be a good record. Exit cloud. Now. Clear air reading, please. Now. End of the run. Now. Looks like a good one.
"500 miles further west, at a reference point in mid-Atlantic called Station Juliet, the British ship Weather Advisor begins her month-long tour of duty, searching sea and sky for weather readings. She is one of 4,000 ships around the world which send in daily readings.
And 10,000 miles south in the deep ice of the polar regions, a Russian meteorological expedition sets up camp in the backyard where weather is born. Backyards can be dangerous places.
Next year, the World Weather Watch will start. It's the first big international exchange of information.
At the present time, 9/10 of the Earth's surface is not sufficiently well measured meteorologically. We don't know what the wind is doing over the South Atlantic. We don't know what the wind is doing and how much moisture there is and how much cloud over distant parts of the Earth. So we're going to have to improve our weather observations.
It's the satellite which flies above our 20-mile deep ocean of weather which has changed our view of it dramatically. The first of the Tyros weather satellites was launched in 1960. Since then, there have been 10 others. Every 3 minutes, the latest of these automatically transmits cloud pictures from 300 miles above the Earth, pictures on which the World Meteorological Organization depends.
An ominous swirl over the Atlantic revealed by Tyros 9, the birth of a hurricane called Betsy.
The satellite warning is flashed to weathership Ceres riding at anchor on Betsy's hem.
Tuned for a hurricane warning. Hurricane Betsy is 470 miles east Daytona Beach.
The Hurricane Watch keeps a steady eye on her progress.
Range to center, 50 miles. Wind speed 65 and rising. Temperature 20.2.
Today, we still run from hurricanes. Tomorrow, they may run from us. The wait over, Betsy comes ashore.
Betsy was a big girl. She did 500 million pounds damage and killed 350 people. Without the warning of Tyros 9, she might have killed 10 times that number.
Tomorrow, delinquents like Betsy may be shredded at birth by chemical bombs. Today, we nudge the atmosphere and make it weep. Over the snowy mountains of Australia, the rainmakers. In one of the classical experiments in weather modification, it was found that by dropping dry ice into a certain type of cloud, ice crystals form. As they fall through the 2-mile thick layer, they gather water and produce rain at the bottom.
The first rainmakers set off over New South Wales. Their technique was successful. The first man-made rain to drop fell over the area in 1947. But the operation, besides being crude, was also expensive and cumbersome.
The latest series of experiments use silver iodide burners fitted to the aircraft. These have the same effect as dry ice. As soon as the right kind of supercooled cloud builds up over the seeding area, the plane, which is kept constantly ready, sets off.
The Australians have come far since the days of throwing dry ice at clouds. The clouds are now tracked and monitored by radar, and the rainmakers are precise.
The flame throws millions of silver iodide crystals into the bowels of the cloud. Seeding a large cloud can take 6 hours, and with hundreds of these now successfully treated, the Australians have begun a long-term effort to change their weather over large areas. This is not yet finished, but they claim significant rises in rainfall.
These cloud seeding experiments have definitely shown beyond any reasonable doubt that it is possible, by putting silver iodide or dry ice into small clouds at any rate, that you can change their behavior and structure. The really big problem is, can you extend these operations and influence the rainfall over very large areas of hundreds or thousands of square miles, which would be of economic value? Now, these large-scale experiments have also been carried out in many countries, and my considered opinion is that they haven't produced any real conclusive evidence that it is possible to produce a significant change in the rainfall.
Atmospherics Incorporated are commercial rainmakers whose success in California led to Congress voting $155 million this year for a program to change the weather. In 10 years, they've increased rainfall by 6%, and they say they can make it 20.
And that will bring problems. Damages for many thousands of pounds have been claimed in America's West by farmers who say their share of rain was stolen and others who say they got more than they bargained for. Henry Lansford is another scientist at Boulder, Colorado. He sees more complications.
Once we achieve this weather control, who is going to be the man who decides what kind of weather it's going to be? Because one farmer may need sunshine for his hay, another fellow may need rain for his corn, the hotel keeper wants sunshine for his guests, fellows wants to go skiing, wants to have lots of snow, and so forth and so on. And these interests are often in conflict. So it will take a Supreme Court of some sort to make the judicial decisions as to who gets what and when.
Who gets what in France may be decided by this. Near Toulouse in the Pyrenees, it's the Cloudmaker, a 3,000 square yard roaster for the atmosphere. Developed by Professor Dessin, its 100 petrol burners make clouds and sometimes rain at the touch of a switch. The burner gets through a ton of fuel every minute. Any rain it makes is more costly than Chanel No. 5.
While France puts the clouds up, America knocks them down. This is the Cloudbuster Squadron of the American Air Force. For the last 3 years, using their giant C-130 plane, they've been punching holes in clouds.
133, you are cleared for takeoff. Roger, 133, cleared for takeoff.
The Cloudbusters, originally a military project, are led by...
Sorry guys, I had to pause it, but do you see the 1960s chemtrail? Might be 1950s, but they've been playing with this technology a long time. I just want to bring this information to you, and thank you to the Warriors at 23 minutes. We'll continue now. Just want to bring that to your attention.
Military project are led by Colonel James Church. Their operations are first sounding the cloud, then seeding the hole, and then slow-motion photography of the result. It's when they see the light in a cloud known as a glory that they swing into action.
Okay, this will be a 4-strip seeding pattern at 180 knots. Are we ready to start seeding our rear?
Roger, sir, all ready.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start seeding strip 1.
Roger, rotating, sir.
A big cloud can weigh 100,000 tons. The pellets the Cloudbusters use to soak up the cloud weigh half an ounce each. The squadron makes 4 runs in a cross shape to get their effect.
All right, in 5 seconds, we will start seeding 4th and last strip. 4, 3, 2, 1. Start seeding 4th strip.
Roger, rotating, sir.
How's the machine running?
Excellent, sir. Couldn't be better.
Got nice clean pellets?
Roger.
We will end seeding 4th strip in 5 seconds.
The phenomenon called an undersun, a sure sign that the Cloudbuster has worked. Within 45 minutes of seeding, holes as big as 100 square miles, large enough to clear most of London, have been punched in the cloud cover. It's all on the Air Force inventory. Anyone can order the Cloudbuster service.
Those were some of the efforts at bending the weather. But ironically, aircraft may be changing the weather by accident.
For example, we have thousands of jet airplanes flying through the air every day, and they're pouring exhaust gases into the atmosphere. There's some evidence that these exhaust gases may cause increased amounts of cirrus cover. If this is so, and it seems very likely, we may be changing the heat balance of the Earth enough to actually be producing inadvertently weather modification on a scale that we don't even have any way to measure at the present time.
The fuels we burn have already caused a rise of 10% in the carbon dioxide in the air. In the future, this could produce a considerable rise in temperatures around the Earth.
Apart from local alterations, what are the chances of changing whole regions, of engineering on a global scale?
So you've either got to do it by brute force, and which means that to do something really, really big, you would have to match the natural energies involved in the atmosphere. And this could only come about if we found some miraculous way of producing energy very, very cheaply in large quantities. The only other alternative is then to try and explore some kind of weak link in nature's armor in which we could do something by expending only a small effort.
Fire!
A sounding of the depth of the Antarctic ice in places 3 miles thick. It's here in the polar regions that the weak link might be found. They're the hinges on which the climate of the Earth turns.
Many plans have been advanced to destroy the ice caps. In June of this year, America's RAND Corporation argued that 25 H-bombs evenly spaced around the ice cap and exploded at the start of April would mean the melting of the continent. Final effect on weather? Unknown.
A Russian proposal has been put forward to build a vast dam across the entrance to the northern ice cap between America and Russia. Cost £6,000 million. Reason to melt the Arctic. Final effect on the weather, unknown.
Did y'all see the chemtrails? And why would you want to melt the ice? Sorry I keep stopping this, but I had questions. But look at all the chemtrails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very distinct there. I'm going to back it up a hair more. But why would, yeah, look at the chemtrails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chemtrails there. Why would they want to melt the ice caps? Come on. They're insane. Mad scientist is a real term. Continuing their mad scientists 60-something year ago experiments. Generational insanity.
Cost £6,000 million. Reason to melt the Arctic. Final effect on the weather, unknown.
Technically, we're advanced enough to manipulate the Earth on this scale.
There's been a good deal of speculation about what would happen if we found some way to advance the melting of the polar ice caps. For example, there's enough water stored in ice on the Earth so that if it were all melted, the oceans would be 200 or 300 feet deeper, and this would affect a lot of real estate on the coasts.
Already, the ice caps are slowly receding of their own accord. We can hasten the process, but we may trigger changes in the climate which will prove to be irreversible.
One of the things that we want to do here at the National Center for Atmospheric Research is to try to build a realistic enough model of the atmosphere, a mathematical model of the atmosphere in a giant computer, so that we can do weather modification experiments harmlessly in the computer itself, and then evaluate what the consequences might be as it changed the flow of cold Arctic water into the North Pacific, what the consequences of these changed distributions of ocean temperature might be on the weather itself. We think that in the computer, we could simulate a great change like this. We could, for example, if we wanted, wipe away the Rocky Mountains, wipe them off the surface of the Earth and see what the weather would be like without them there, if we were able to develop a mathematical model to perform realistic experiments, to do weather modification experiments there safely before they're done on the real world.
In April next year, the present World Meteorological Organization expands into the World Weather Watch. So far, meteorology has the best of international records. A final word from Dr. Roberts.
Before we listen to this clown, did y'all recognize that symbol there? The New World Order. You know who controls our weather, right? And they've been doing it the whole time. Mercy. It goes back before I was even born, this battle. The poor farmers in the 60s that was ridiculed. My aunt back in '05 that was ridiculed in Louisiana. Mercy, they will get humility for the people that ridiculed them. God have mercy. This is a generational fight, my friends, and it's not going to change because some commercial fisherman's telling you the truth. Last couple minutes here, and I'll have my final thought. Thank you for standing by.
April next year, the present World Meteorological Organization expands into the World Weather Watch. So far, meteorology has the best of international records. A final word from Dr. Roberts.
Weather is the resource of no one nation, but is a common property of the people of all of the world. And if we ever achieve the possibility to modify the weather on a large scale, we must make certain that modification is done in such a way that it is to the best interests of all of the people in the world, and not to the narrow interest of any one group.
Britain doesn't accept the evidence for modification. This week, a government statement said experiments were inconclusive. So we do the best we can with what we've got, the Sky Dome. The makers say it could cover our holiday resorts in the future. Inside, a perfect climate, an artificial sun that's not too hot and not too cold. We do at least try.